Riley, Dr. Sloman Angel, who finished architecture because human settlements planning is about urban regional planning. Again, this was reinforced when I met Avrum and David Ball of Clark University when I did a research on strengthening rural-urban linkages as an instrument for regional and national development. But for this, I would like to ask our good resource speaker about your philosophy. Maybe I'm conscious, and maybe others would be, to what extent your philosophy has influence, of course, for the better, to the Israelites or to the Israel community, especially that you are in the academy. Is that a good question to ask, Sir Dr. Daniel? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question. I start by apologizing. I didn't tell you the one last thing about good posture. Don't lock any joints. And always keep a happy tail. And if you sit, don't sit on your tail. Always lean backwards, forward, never lean backwards. This is wrong technology. Now, if you ask me about my influence, I had thousands of students, perhaps a handful of them went barefoot. So, in this respect, I have totally no influence. But I'm still researching into the question not only about the good living, which is the basic notions of philosophy, and I'm still experimenting, still failing, and still learning, but also about how to do good communication. Because from my own perspective, I'm a complete failure. Even my daughters don't follow me. Well, in some respect they do, but in others they don't. And they will live their own life and have their own struggles. And they do, down now, in the one is 18 and the other in beginning of her 20s. And they do things I couldn't. But the question is, how do we learn from each other? Because I see myself as very fortunate to have learned from people when I had the opportunity. For example, when I was a new student of Tai Chi, in my class there was a guy that during the breaks or before class began, actually it wasn't a class, it was in the park, he would sit in crossed legs, straight back. And I would be like that. So for many years, I forgot the name of this student, but for many years, whenever I went to the park or to the beach and wanted to meditate and set crossed legs, and I was raising his image just like you would do with Jesus in order to straighten my back. So he was one of my most important masters. And he doesn't know it, and I don't remember his name. I distinctly remember his face. If I see him, I thank him. So there is a say, when the student is ready, the teacher comes. And it's vice versa also. The teacher would come, if student is not ready, they will not learn. Even if they enroll the students in his academic class, or even if they are this guy's or her best friends or family members. we are tried every moment of our life with da'at, with knowing right from wrong. We are tried every single second with judging what is important in our life and important to learn and what is redundant. So if I've mastered in the next years the art of teaching not only a curriculum in academia, which I became very good at, but of life philosophy, then I would have your answer. In the meantime, I would regard your question as perhaps the question I'm thinking of. And actually, I'll tell you of a personal experience I had. I was very fortunate to have stumbled in Israel many years ago, a small group, secret group, that was gathering in the nights to drink an Amazonian medicine called ayahuasca. They had a different name, which introduced a person into a state of being with the holy, and into a divine state. And it's illegal in Israel. It is legal in Amazonia. And they follow this syncretic religion coming from Amazonia, which include both Christian motives, like Jesus and Maria and Joseph, father of Jesus, and they would sing about it, but also African deities like Oshun and the goddess of the sea, Yemanja. And when I first was, I stumbled by chance, and I'm into this group. And when I first visited there, and I saw pictures of Jesus, and the woman who introduced me to this group said, "What do you think about this person?" And I thought, I sincerely said, I have no particular sentiment about this figure, because I've read the New Testament. I agreed with the philosophy. I always thought that Jesus was an important Hebrew prophet. Prophet in the sense of speaking the truth according to strict moral principles, and speaking the truth about what I would now say my religion, my own. But other than that, and the years went by, and I had the experience of people being angry with me for speaking truth about being barefoot, or about speaking about COVID, and there were many other topics in between. And people were angry with me. And for the first time I understood the challenge of being able to speak your inner truth, even if you are not understood, and perhaps even disproved by the fact that you have not made a popular impression. I was fortunate still to be able to, I was the ex-chairperson of the coordinating forum of all non-tenured faculty in Israel, which was formally been hired for 8 months a year and fired every summer for 4 months in order to evade the law that you have to give social benefits, etc. So by the end of my terms, every faculty sorry, the effect of air pollution. Every faculty in Israel, junior, doesn't matter, receives 12 months pay and social and academic benefits. And then I was privileged to be the chairperson of the Tel Aviv Bicycle Association, which was a bicycle advocacy group, which I turned into the Israel Bicycle Association, which had started the idea of bike transportation in Israel, and now Tel Aviv is all over with bike lanes, and we have better laws and better infrastructure and much safer circumstances. So I was fortunate to achieve that as well. And I was very fortunate to have thousands of students of environmental studies, and I was also fortunate to be the voice of those who were how do I put it? Outlawed and insulted the so-called anti-vaxxers, and my own daughters were fully vaccinated according to the recommendations of the Israeli Ministry of Health. And when they were born, I already had my PhD. And I never doubted these policies. And my younger daughter was infected. And fortunately, she fully recovered when she was 7 or 8. But we had difficult first years with all kinds of health issues, which apparently are common injuries of vaccines, such as baby asthma and other issues. So I was, I found myself, giving voice to the destituted, to those who've been fired from their workplaces, those who have been ridiculed. So let me take pride in walking in the footsteps of Yeshua, as in Hebrew, Jesus Yeshua, which means salvation in Hebrew. All names in Hebrew mean something. My own name is Daniel. It means God judge me, or the judgment of God, which means it's a heavy burden. It's not an easy name. And it's the name of a prophet, but it has meaning. So Yeshua is salvation. And so let me be misunderstood. And if one single person gets something from me, like keep a happy smile in order to get a better posture, or enjoy barefoot, or at least put shoes with 5 fingers, now we have the technology. It doesn't allow grounding, the discharge of electricity and other energies from the ground and to the ground, but it enables natural motion. And we have the technologies, and it costs no more than regular shoes, regular high-tech shoes. Perhaps less, depends which. So if anyone gets a single advice of me, I already got my reward. And who knows in the future, perhaps after I retired and had relieved from my teaching duties, I would be better at conveying some unorthodox message. Thank you for that question.
Yes, thank you very much for your sharing. But just before you started your lecture, we're talking about climate change. And I was talking about climate adaptation and mitigation and about the carbon emissions. And he said the carbon emission is really not the greatest problem. There's something else. Would you like to expand on that?
Remember, I have complete faith in my human image and in my human consciousness. That is in my senses. Remember, we had frequent interruptions by sirens. That's environmental quality. If you go outside, you know the difference between the good air in Mount Apple or in the hills and the air we breathe in the city next to a busy road. That's environmental quality. I was the first faculty in the Porter School of Environmental Science. So I would be the last to deny the ecological crisis. The ecological crisis was framed in the 1960s, shortly before I was born. I was born in 1966. And it was based on the concept of environmental qualities. Good air, good water, unpoisoned soil. Now we have more such notions. We know there is noise pollution, light pollution, etc. All these are vital and absolutely true environmental concepts. Now there is a distinction between the environment and ecology. Environment is a discipline within disciplinary science. It doesn't challenge common paradigm. But everything environmental science says is true. With regard to environmental quality. Now, in the beginning of the 80s, and especially in the 90s, emerged a new theory according to which the ecological disaster is climate change. No deforestation, no destruction of natural habitat, not environmental quality, but abstract concept of CO2 emissions which are not toxic. Actually, if you have only CO2 and you might die in a confined room, but if we live in an ecological system, the plants thrive on that gas. That's the balance between animals and plants. This theory, as I explained to Noel before, rests on something I couldn't accept as scientific. Because we know several things about the world. Share with me. It is infinite, right? And it is finite, we know, perhaps there is outer space, etc. But it's infinite in details. And it is, if you're talking about the climate, we know it runs according to chaotic mathematics, according to chaotic equations. Learn more about it, but according And if you observe the actual world, for example, the way we are built, the way plants, all reality according to the aesthetic of fractals. You know fractals? If not, Google it. That's now, since climate is based on these infinite principles, the theory which explains what might happen if you run out of balance should be balanced on such principles. However, climate theory now states that there is a linear, not chaotic, linear relation between carbon emissions and climate change. Sorry, I don't believe in a single linear principle within an infinitely chaotic principle. If we had already a complete theory of the climate, then perhaps we could have inferred a possibility of climate change. Nowadays, I don't believe there is. Nowadays, we don't have such a theory. We do not yet even know the interactions between the biosphere, the living part of the environment, and the climate. We know, for example, that clouds are formed also by particles released by algae from the oceans. That's just one example. So, my own conviction, the ecological disaster is real. Where do you see it? Go outside the city. Look inside the city. Look at how excavation now threatens local communities in Mindanao. Professor Bayod took me in 2019 to indigenous communities in Melita, and I was privileged to be the first non-Filipino and the second foreigner, because the first was the head of the mission, and me and Roger were the only foreigners that were allowed to climb the holy mountain, which is now threatened by excavation, by minor interest, who has relations to government and power. This is a threat we should be facing, not abstract concepts such as carbon emissions. Now, one last thing. Recently, they passed climate law in Israel. You know what a climate law means? Climate tax. Now, how do you calculate climate tax? Very easy. We will eliminate cash, so you will buy only with traceable money, like digital money, and for every purchase, we calculate carbon emissions. So this is an authoritarian system to track every citizen on every detail. That's the worst form of dictatorship I could imagine. And they were using, those who promoted such laws are using me and my advocacy friends who invested their whole mature life to social and environmental activism as what's the term? Usable idiots. We do all the work, we create the energy, and then they divert this energy from environmental protection to climate loss. And by the end, they redesign the economy according to non-fossil energy. Now, if you ask me, I was always terribly threatened by cars because, you know, as a cyclist, all my life, when a car would have passed me by, I would be insulted. This is my thing, insulted, because it leaves a trace of discernible air pollution, so I have to stop breathing until it gets farther, and the noise, actually the frequency of the engine, especially as I progressed in yoga and Tai Chi and I opened my senses, it became worse and worse. So I used to go wake up before dawn, to cycle to the university before dawn to evade traffic, and not as many traffic as you have here in the Philippines. It is very sad. So electric cars, I really enjoy. When they pass me by, I breathe, I enjoy it. Not everything is a bad idea. But if we take our guide, environmental quality, that's one thing. If we take as our guide a concept which might be just a disguise for power concentration, and because, you know, following economic laws, the wealth will not be redistributed. It will be reconcentrated. And by the way, the same effect was for the 2020 policies. 95% of the population suffered severe economic losses. I guess I lost something like maybe a third of my wealth just by cutting the value of my future pension and investment. While the top 5% and certainly the top 1% and certainly the top those in the pyramid, they were doing like Bill Gates, who was doing like 20-30% a year during COVID years. So let's be open-eyed with realities. Environmental protection, yes. Fighting together with indigenous communities, with local communities, against policies which don't register properly benefits. Because there is a very good book I suggest you to read by agroecologist, physicist, nuclear physicist, Indian, Vandana Shiva. And I got a copy by a student of mine with her signature, Wealth per Acre. And she co-authored this book with another Indian scholar, a PhD, and they calculated if you have a plot of land, let's say an acre, if you practice agroecology, including new technologies like solar panels, etc. We're not restricting ourselves to traditional technologies only. but we make the best of our resources, including modern knowledge and science. And she compared it to industrial agriculture, and she showed and she proved that we get far greater wealth per acre by agroecology. But the government doesn't do such calculation. They do the GDP, and the GDP is blind to wealth distribution, is blind to environmental degradation, blind to everything which is important to us in life. For example, love, relationship, family, mutual assistance. It doesn't register. So we have to redesign our method to register, to count what is real and what is fake, wrong metrics. And one last thing about this book. I taught it several times in my environmental seminars, and I gave it twice to PhD candidates that both completed their PhD. One was doing in remote sensing, like top science, and the other one was doing synthetic biology, algae and novel energy production from the same. By the way, they were doing their experiment in India and the Philippines, but not in Mindanao, in different areas. And I told them, your seminar work, criticize this book. They tried to criticize, they said it's a valid argument. And that would be a long answer to your question. Thank you. And doing justice to my, to whole life career in the combined area of ecological philosophy, environmental studies, and ethics. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel. Anyone would like to add more to give their reflections? Would like to share something? Anyone? Okay. Anyone, sir? Okay, someone's raising his hand. Sir, you are recognized.
Hello. Good afternoon, Dr. Daniel. I would like to say thank you so much for that insightful discussion. I just want to emphasize the ideas or the reflection that I earned from the discussion. Actually, one thing that I understand is that traditional knowledge and science is not something that should go against with each other, but then it is something that can be utilized to somehow come up with productive reinforcement to somehow create solution, especially in sustainability, ethical considerations, and other ethical standards. But I have one question in mind, since we cannot detach ourselves from reality that sometimes some people think that science and traditional knowledge can go against with each other, that it is meant to revolt to one another. Okay, that's the exact statement. How can we utilize science and traditional knowledge without conflict? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You have great questions. It goes like this. There was another part to that I felt that I forgot to say with regard to Noah's question. And it completely matched with your question. Climate change. They threaten with us with a new flood, Mabul. That's the word in Hebrew. The great flood. And I was starting to think, well, in our tradition, God gave us the bow, how do you say? The rainbow, promised there will be no more flood or Mabul. So, in this sense, we have one theory of tradition and religion, and one theory by science. Who knows which theory is true? Now in 2020, we were warned against a pandemic. Now you know Judaism is not a belief in Bible. We have the halacha, which is a Jewish law. And the halacha is based on the Talmud, which are scriptures which were designed as arguments between two schools. The schools of the master, the teacher, the Rabbi Hillel, and the school of the Rabbi Shammai. And usually Hillel will be the more soft and permissive, and when they asked Hillel, teach us in standing on one leg the essence of Torah, of the, Torah. Torah is the essence of the Bible. Actually, it's our teaching. We don't have a religion, we have a Torah. That's what we got in Mount Sinai, the Torah. Yeah, it's the Ten Commandments, but we believe it was a whole worldview. And give us in one, yes, standing on one leg, the whole Torah. And he said, love thy friend as you love yourself, and the rest go and learn. And this is actually it's not simple, because if one doesn't love himself or herself, he wouldn't be able to love the other. So we have a challenge first to love ourselves, then the other. Now, go back to 2020. In the Talmud, there is a tradition about what do you do in terms of plague. Plague, let's say, is the biblical concept for pandemic. First, you have to define plague. So the Talmudic definition of plague is one person dies for every day for 3 days in a city. In a city is 500 people. Okay? So if you have in a city of 500 people, 3 days you have 3 dead, this is a plague. This is a pandemic. Okay? There was nothing like this in 2020. Is any one of you, and every one of you knows at least 500 people. Do you know 3 people dying in 3 days from 500 people you knew in any community in the Philippines? Okay. So sometimes we don't have to accept new definitions by science. Sometimes older concepts are enough. Now the whole thing about science and religion was formed in Christian Europe. And it was within this setting that we have the concept of secular science. By the way, Christian Europe invented the concept of Judaism as a religion. What is a religion? is what you leave for the church after you give the authority of the state. After what Jesus said when the Romans came for him and he said, well, are you a rebel? Do you proclaim yourself a new emperor? And he said, no, well, look at this coin. What's whose face? The emperor. Give this to the emperor. So Christianity was created as a separation between state and church. And then Christianity viewed Judaism the same, but Judaism is not the same. Jews have Judaism. We are not Jews. We are the people of Israel. By the way, this is also in the Quran. We are Beni Israel in Arabic, the sons of Israel. So we are the people of Israel, and we don't have a religion, we have the Torah. And we have interpretation of the Torah in the Talmud, which is designed as an argument between the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai. The house of Hillel will be more permissive, the house of Shammai more strict. But we have the argument and no answer who is right. Because the epistemology, the consciousness, concept behind the halakha, the Jewish law, following the Torah, we receive the people of Israel as Am Israel, is argue. You should always argue. And then we collect these arguments and we learn from them how to argue and how not to accept authority. Now, if we frame the argument between science and religion according to European concept, originally it was an argument about the authority of the church over disputable matters. How disputable? Via intellectual means. This should be our method in every domain. So, with regard to climate change, who knows? Perhaps Genesis was right, and we will prove that there is no flood. We could still have ecological catastrophe. We could still lose the holy mountain. I don't remember the name of the sacred deity there, but you know, I see myself as a faithful believer in, as I told you, in the Makom, in the Hebrew concept of God. But my faith must rest on my ability to exercise every capacity I received from my Creator, including my critical capacity. Because even the people who love us the most, like my parents, they dressed me up in shoes and they sent me to schools where I had to sit on chair. Now, personal note. I didn't enjoy my first year in school. By my second school, I was so unhappy, I told people I wanted to die. And this was an immune from future suicidal thoughts because 2 years passed and I thought, well, I survived so far, so I continue. I stopped studying when I was at my 4th grade and never resumed. I didn't finish high school. I later finished my exams. And only later, in retrospect, I realized that I not only lost my happiness, I lost my firmness. I was used to walk like this because I was sad for many years. And if you are sad, your head walks straight, and I can demonstrate it to you. If I do like this backwards, see? You look at my elbow. You see, I cannot close them behind. I have friends who can close their elbow behind. You know what's that? That's after 45 years of efforts to open myself, I am still closed around the chakra of the heart. Here. You could still see the remains in my posture, but my yoga still functions, as you can see. So, I lost my posture due to loving people, wanting only my best, standing in with shoes to school to sit on chairs. Dozens of years of rehabilitating myself without even knowing what I was doing, just following my natural instinct. So, we must be critical in all directions. From science to all kinds of churches, and from faith to all kinds of churches, including the Church of Science. And you know the language of academia is actually the language of the churches. Look at the faculty names. We have deans and we have rectors. These are all church notions. And what's professor? It's a teacher in the church. PhD, originally, it's licensed to teach. So, be critical in all directions without losing our faith and without succumbing to any authority. If it contradicts our skeptical, critical capacities and our conscious, which is, closely tied with our consciousness.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Daniel. Let's give Dr. Daniel a round of applause. I think we can accommodate one more question from the audience. Okay, let me see a hand, please. Sir? Anyone? Not once, but twice, more thrice. By the way, we still have part 2 this coming Monday at 1 to 5 p.m. at that. Well, of course, as what a brother in Dr. Daniel had mentioned a while ago, it will be air-conditioned room na sa ADR. Yes. I think there's another one. Last one question.
I was actually looking at the audience because I don't want to add to what I have already put across earlier. But my intention is really to propel more exchanges of meanings because we are supposed to be here up to 5 o'clock. Maybe the student in economics of me is concerned with optimization on the use of time. But that is conventional wisdom. We should take the cue from the speaker that conventions can be questioned. as to what we can see in the real world. So, thank you very much, Dr. Daniel, because your special lecture today really is very providential. Following all that you have projected on screen, really confirms what I have read, what I have experienced officially as former government servant, as an official, as a student whose experiences can range from personal and even vicarious. So throughout the discussion, Dr. Daniel mentioned about spirituality, Francis Bacon's aphorism. You have even things like, it was not mentioned, Foucault, which is postmodernism as a paradigm of development, which is in fact also touched in research. So I like the fact that spirituality was mentioned. It really conforms to brother, we were both inside of course magkaiba kami ng panahon, apparently I'm older than brother. And at that time, I never knew what really spirituality is. So I had confirmed it by reading, by looking at the YouTube, and that resonated very well in your lecture. Embracing spirituality, and among others, because the need to redistribute wealth. Kanina, our good speaker mentioned about GDP as not the measure of development. This is accepted by Filipino economists. That's why we develop social indicators. But it's still a big struggle because that is not still translated into action. The plan says we should be more inclusive, but there is still a gap. No? Even maybe in organization, it's easy to say that we want to promote inclusivity, but maybe the real world will be questioned. Is there a match or a mismatch between rhetoric and reality? This is actually at the heart of your lecture. So I'm really happy that you are here to exchange meanings rather than invectives. And we cannot exchange meanings if we exchange invectives. Invectives means insults. There is nothing in your lecture that actually borders on insults. It was very friendly. I was happy of the colleagues mentioning about how can we make science and tradition converge. I remember DOST now is encouraging grassroots innovation. Again, it's a rhetoric in the plan, in the policy, but at least we have that vision, mission to make them converge. Because I remember when I was in grade school, we did have herbarium. And herbarium is consistent with what we know in plant kingdom, that medicines can be extracted. So we are back to the grassroots because we know that it is not necessarily virgin with what we call as highly scientific in the field of medicine and even pharmacy. No? Even things like biochemistry. I also like the mentioning of Sir Foucault, which is postmodernism, because it reopened my mind, and I hope it does to the rest of this group, because postmodernism defines that there is no such thing as a fixed concept. Conceptually, maybe they are definable, they are separable, but in the real world, they are actually inseparable. And I'm referring to postmodernism in research. So what we call a success today may not really be the success we will define in the future because it's continually evolving. And this is where we continue to engage so that we can learn, we can be more inclusive rather than being extracted. Thank you very much, Mr. or Dr. Daniel, for your resource speakership.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
my brother.
Just to connect to Dr. Dipolo, please to let you know, for Holy Cross of Davao College, we are conceptualizing it, but we are conceptualizing to become a hub. And our hub we call RICH, which is reinforcing innovation for culture and heritage. And we feel that as an archdiocese and college, culture and heritage is very important. And so we would like to look at culture and heritage in food industry. We would like to look at it in tourism. We would look at it even in criminal justice and many other aspects of the college. So later on, hopefully later on, we can see the convergence of culture and heritage in all the curriculum or curricula of the college. And it will give us a niche as a school. That's what I've learned from Malaysia, Indonesia, and other Asian countries where culture and heritage is so much embedded in the program. Tayo medyo may disconnect. We are so westernized that we become disconnected to our own culture and heritage. And this is what we would like to push, and I hope you can help us in this, strengthening our resolve for culture and heritage as our anchor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, brother, and Dr. Antipolo for that insightful and very enriching sharing with regard to the lecture seminar today shared by Dr. Daniel. And with this, before we proceed with the last part of this lecture, let's give a smile clap to Dr. Daniel. Alam ba natin yung smile clap? It's just simple. We clap at the same time we smile. Diba? Okay, let's give Dr. Daniel a smile clap. Thank you so much. It's really an honor, Dr. Daniel, for you having us here in Holy Cross. And with this, before we give the certificate of appreciation, I think you have na-smell niyo ba yung mabango na kape? Have you smelled it? Yung aroma ng kape, it's the Cafe Bro nasa likod. Everyone is invited, no, to taste it, no. By the way, Cafe Bro is a charitable organization managed by the Brothers of the Sacred Heart residents. By the way, na ako'y 10%, hindi kailangan i-promote. Joke lang, brother. It's located at Manga Street, Huna subdivision in Matina. No, they offer yung kanilang trademark napakaganda. At Cafe Bro, you sip, you drink, and be inspired. So that is Cafe Bro, no? So take time to visit. And parang kumbaga, nagkape ka na, nakapag-relax ka pa. O, di ba? Okay? Yes, please follow the page of Cafe Bro. Nandito po sa FB, tingnan niyo lang po. And then, please invite also your friends, your colleagues, and your relatives, no, to visit Cafe Bro. Daghang salamat. Okay, at this point, let me request our school president to be with us to give the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Daniel Mishori for his active participation during the forum held on February 8, 2025 at Holy Cross of Davao College, signed by our school president, Brother Noel Vic H. Deloria SC, and to be signed by our Dean of the Graduate School, Reynaldo O. Quizon, PhD. A round of applause, please.
I thank very much President Noel. In my opinion, really, perhaps the most impressive academic leader I've met. That was my impression in the CES event a few days ago. And when I was standing here, looking at the audience, before it started, it was a prayer, a national anthem, and then the mission of the college, and Noel was reciting every word with his lips. and I knew what sincerity and wholehearted effort meant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel. Actually, our school president is a very down-to-earth school leader. Okay, may I request the graduate school faculty to please come in front for the photo op. Graduate school faculty, and also to Dr. Rogelio Bayod, Mr. Ryan Mabolo, Mr. Mansueto, and to all graduate school faculty, please to come in front for the photo op.